I am fixing to start a long-term experiment. And this is just the first one. This may turn into multiple versions of this, essentially the same experiment. A little bit of citizen science, as you will. I am going to make some, or attempt to make, some Winogradsky columns. You can look this all up on YouTube and different places. The history of it, a Russian guy by the name of Winogradsky. Basically, you have a container. I'm going to be using glass. Taller, thinner, should hopefully make it work better. And in it, you put mud and water. Mud and water from like a pond, a creek, side of a creek or something like that. And you put the mud and the water in there, and I've seen lots of different tweaks on it. And some of them kind of, I don't know if you'd say they contradict each other, but they may or may not use some of the same amendments and say they're being used for different things. That's part of what I wanted to find out is, do these amendments or additives make a significant difference, and what exactly in it makes the difference, and I'll explain. So the simplest version, you put mud and water from a pond, put it in a jar, cover it up, give it a little bit of a valve for off-gassing, because for the first couple of 3 weeks, something like that, it's going to anaerobically ferment, and that's going to off-gas, and that needs to go somewhere. I mean, if I put this on there and really had a tight lid and no gas could get out, it would build up pressure, and I guess if it built up enough, it could probably break. But after a little bit of time, most of that fermenting will kind of settle down, and then you can lock it down, and it becomes a self-contained ecosystem where the goal is to have different layers of bacteria and other microbes in there that kind of self-organize based on where in the column they are most comfortable living. You tend to be more anaerobic down at the bottom, a little more aerobic at the top. So the things that need more oxygen, breathe oxygen in, will be up here. The ones that don't need oxygen be down here. They may actually give off oxygen, which would then rise in there in the container and then be eaten by the ones that breathe in oxygen, give off CO2, which then goes back down. So it's kind of like a terrarium, an ecosystem, and the hope is you end up with different layers and different colors, and they correspond to different types of organisms, microorganisms, and different conditions, whether it's pH, whether it's where sulfur is or isn't, hydrogen is or isn't, oxygen is or isn't, things of that nature. So the simplest one, mud, water, and you put it in, and it needs access to light. Ideally, it would be full spectrum sunlight. Here in Arkansas, it can get pretty hot, and I don't want them to get too hot and kill everything, because that would also be like a greenhouse in there. It would get very hot very quickly, and also don't want to get it knocked over and broke. So we do have kind of a sunroom here. We've got a lot of trees outside. There's not a lot of direct sun, but it is more or less temperature controlled, and I've got grow lights to start seeds. This room's been unusable for about 3 years, and now I'm able to start cleaning it back out and have access and maybe start doing some seed starting. Luckily, we have a very long growing season. But again, the simplest version is mud, water from the pond, put some saran wrap or something to make a one-way gas valve on it, and I'm just going to put it on the shelf as if I'm starting seeds, and I've got 3 different grow lights with different spectrums on a timer, on at 8 a.m. in the morning, off at 8 p.m. in the morning. It'll get some ambient light anyway, but I'm kind of hoping with those grow lights and the right spectrum, not only will it work, but it might work faster because it'll be getting a little bit more concentrated light, and those that photosynthesize will become active and grow faster. So I'm hoping I'll get a slightly faster result. Now, when I say faster, this is a multi-month process. There are some of these Winogradsky columns in some museums and different places that are years old. The reason for the tall thin is you're trying to get as much surface area and have as much of the contents exposed to the light to photosynthesize as possible. Probably in a perfect world, I'd be able to get some custom containers made that are very thin, tall, very narrow, maybe wide or something like that, but where more and more of it is touching the outside the glass and getting exposed to light. Right now, this is the best I've got. I had considered going to one of the local country club type places and trying to get a bunch of the tennis ball containers, 3 balls come in a plastic tube, take the labels off. It would be essentially free other than my time. My only concern with that is there is some evidence that there are some bacteria and or fungi that actually break down plastic. And if this is going to be a multi-month, multi-year thing, then I don't want the container to get dissolved. I don't really think that would happen in any, it'd probably be years before that would happen. But if there are organisms in there that can eat plastic, then that could alter the outcome, whereas they should not be able to eat glass, and this might be one less variable. So what I've got on top, and the amendments that I've seen used are eggs, and most of the ones that are saying the eggs, a lot of them are saying that it's for the sulfur content, because smell of rotten eggs is sulfur. And some of them will say to use the yolk. Well, I did a little bit of looking, and if what I looked up is true, there's more sulfur in the white than there is in the yolk. So, do we use the yolk? Do we use the white? Do we use the whole thing? So this particular set of columns, are going to be pretty much based around the question of sulfur. And is it actually the sulfur in the egg that gives them what they're wanting, or is it the amino acids, or something else? So I'm going to have one, I've got them labeled on top. I'm going to have one that is, so it's S for sulfur, C is control. So I'm going to have a control. That's mud and water, nothing else. I'm going to have one that is the yolk only. I'm going to have one that is the white only, so sulfur, white, I've even got the word white underneath it. SE is going to be the whole egg. So that's going to be the yolk and the white, but not the shell. Calcium is going to be a different thing. And then, just to kind of give me basically another comparison. So if any of these or all of these give the results, the one that they say they do using the egg, and the ingredient in the egg that is what's important is sulfur, well then if I could do essentially the control without any egg whatsoever, but I could put in known sulfur, and pure sulfur without the other constituents of the egg, and possibly at a slightly higher concentration, then whatever reaction sulfur gives here, I should get more of it here. And that's easy to do because you go to any place, any garden supply place, lawn supply, or agricultural, and you can get sulfur to change, mainly for changing the pH of your soil, and it's fairly cheap. So I happen to have a bag of 90% sulfur, and it's pelletized with bentonite clay, water soluble, although bentonite clay, I guess it eventually is. So I just grabbed a little bit of that. So this one is going to be the control, mud and water only, but with a little bit of 90% sulfur, and see how that compares against these. So there's my control, kind of my sulfur control, and then the ones with the variable, yolk, white, or the whole egg. We have a pond in the backyard. It's kind of low, so I can make it easier to get to. I've got a bucket full of gloop, mud and stuff. I've seen some people put in newspaper leaves or something else like that for carbon. Actually, yeah, I need to be careful. I need to redo that label because this is going to be the pure sulfur. I've got another variable about carbon. I'm going to do another set having to do with carbon and cellulose and stuff. So, but anyway, so that's going to be the sulfur contingent of this. So I am going to just put mud about 2/3 of the way from the same container. It's the same mud in all of them. I'm going to top this one off with water. I'm going to put a little bit of sulfur pellets in this one. I'll put the yolk, the white, and the whole egg, stir them up a little bit. It will go on the shelf. Timer is already on. It'll come on at 8 o'clock in the morning, go off at 8 p.m. And I have a time-lapse camera. I got a camera off of Amazon specifically for this. It will take one picture every hour until I guess the 32 gig memory card fills up. And not only will I have those, but I believe this one can also automatically turn it into a slideshow. So we'll get a time lapse of weeks, if not months, of the changes of this. So the bad thing about it for y'all is I don't really have a whole lot else to show you on this for some time. I mean, maybe once a month I might do a quick little photo or something, but I'm not really going to have significant things to show for a while. I don't believe I can hook that camera up to a computer in a way that would give constantly updated time lapse. So it'll just have to be something that maybe once a month I kind of download or something of that nature to update. So I'm just opening these up. And we will put gloop. I may take a little bit of the leaves and stuff out. I'm not going to take a lot of it out because this is natural. This is the mud. This is the ecosystem out there. So if I start going and trying to change it, then, are we truly getting all the biology? Try to keep that's the bad thing about these. You fall over easily. And I'm putting it out in this room. Try to get some of that out. Because, especially at the beginning, if it off-gasses, it is not going to be a pleasant smelling off-gas. I mean, it already smells, gloopy and muddy and somewhat rank, as you would expect. And I don't think it's going to get much better. But eventually it will be sealed. There are just so many trees around that it's difficult not to have a lot of leaves. We got oaks and cedars and sweet gum. Pines. It will probably initially, it will not look like there's much happening other than kind of, if you're familiar with a soil texture jar test where you put your stuff in there and for the first few hours, day or so, it kind of settles out. That will probably happen. We will, for the first few days, just kind of see a settling of the sand, silt, clay out of the water, out of suspension. But eventually it is supposed to begin making layers. I don't know how patient I'm going to be, but that's the good thing about it. I mean, you basically set it up and let it go. You don't have to feed it. It's not sourdough. You don't have to come out here and feed it all the time and do a reserve. You don't have to measure pH. It just is what it is. And let it grow. I'm not weighing these to make sure I get everything exact. I don't really think it's going to matter that much. The question for this group is sulfur. In another time, we might do carbon or cellulose or amino acids or salt of some kind, whether it's sodium, chloride, table salt, or some other salt. It could be nitrogen. We might get some, fertilizer that's got a pretty high first number, 00, and try different sources of nitrogen to see if that makes a difference. I don't think right now I'm going to do the full throw the kitchen sink at it, because I don't know. This is just, I could see if I had the time and the space and all of that, you could probably do 100 or 2 of these all at the same time, a couple of each variable change, so you'd have some replication. Not to mention, you could have, this is all mud from the same source. What if we had mud from multiple sources? Just do the control, just mud and water, but from 5 or 10 different water bodies. You could find one combination, whether it's just the plain control, whether it was something with sulfur and carbon and cellulose and all of them that was giving you a significant reaction, an obvious reaction, and vary the temperature. Either just have them in different temperatures constantly, or even have one that's the temperature, one that stays at 70 all the time, and one that varies, throughout the day. I mean, there's so many different ways to do this. Okay, so that one's the yolk, this one's the white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the yolk from the white, put the white in this one. These are some eggs that are a little bit older. They would probably be okay to eat, but I'm not sure. I've got new ones. So I'm gonna put the yolk in that one. The white is in that one. Then I've got, make sure I get the right one. This one is going to be the one that has the yolk and the white, both. And this one is going to have the sulfur. No egg, just sulfur. In some of them, most of the videos that I watched, they kind of mixed everything all up and let it self-organize. In a few of them, they were careful to layer, and I think they were trying to layer it where normally you would get the sulfur, at this area, and you'd get the one that would be an indicator of the carbon up here, and they put them in those layers. But if they're supposed to be self-organizing, then I don't understand why you would do that. I mean, they would probably eventually migrate there anyway. But I am going to just kind of put the same amount of water, and this is water from that pond. So it is not tap water or distilled water or anything. It is water from the pond. And these leaves may be an issue, but we shall see. I mean, that will be a cellulose and or carbon source, but it should be essentially pretty much even on all of them. So I'll put the lid on those, clean the outside up. I'm going to clean this off between them because try to minimize cross-contamination a little bit. And I'll get some saran wrap once I've got it kind of cleaned up a little bit, and then I'll put saran wrap on it, or I'll just leave the lid kind of loose. So that it will not build up pressure inside, but it's not just open to air. I did not see a single one or read anything from any of them where they indicated that at the beginning it should be completely open to air. So And I would say that this would be a good experiment to do with kids, although you will have to know your kids to know whether, I guess, whether they got the attention span and if they'll be curious about it long enough. But like I already said, the good thing about it is, unlike a pet, it doesn't need fed. All it needs is light. And apparently also a healthy supply of paper towels. I guess if I was outside, I could take this and hose it down. It will dry maybe later on. Although if I am going to take it outside and hose it down, I would need to do it fairly soon, because once it starts separating, probably the disturbance would set it back, and that would be yet another variable. Okay, let's put the sulfur on. Is that going to... may need another tray, just in case it tries to fall over or something and make a mess. Now these two lights are the same. This one's different. There may be a slight difference in spectrum. Go into each one, I guess, to control for that. One thing I could do would be every once in a while change the order under the lights, so that at least over time they get a little more balanced exposure. And at some point I'll probably also add some seeds. One of the good things about this is I essentially live alone. So I don't have to worry about any kind of family or housemate complaining about my little experiments. Clean these off more later when they dry a little bit more. Needless to say, these containers, these glass containers, will never again be used for anything that would be considered food. I'm not going to be storing any pasta in them after all of this. I'm a little curious if the light, if there's going to be enough UV light to fade the labels or not. I start noticing that, then I'll just have to print some new labels. I need to see if there's any kind of clear tape that is UV blocky. That way I can put the labels on there or laminate them and then stick them on with some UV blocking so they don't fail. I am trying to get a little bit of room so they get more light. Last one. This is my control. And again, if you're watching this one soon after I upload it, don't be checking back in 2 or 3 days and wondering how's it going. Probably won't see anything change other than maybe a little bit of settling for possibly a month or more. This is going to be a long term, and I may keep these things for years. That would be kind of cool to have some that I started and 5 years later I've still got, and they're significantly different. So that's where they are. Let me see if I can get it. So this is where they shall live. Again, we have right now the control, the yolk, the white, the whole egg, and the sulfur pellets. When the lights are on, it will look like this. And that will be there for 12 hours. So it will come on for 12 hours, it will go off for 12 hours. And we shall see what happens over time. Oh, I need to turn the camera on. I'll probably need to do that. And make sure that I've got okay. Don't know if you'll be able to see that. I can see all 5 of them in there. Long press into time lapse. So I'm long pressing. Time lapse, it's taking one photo, so it's counting down. Time lapse has started, and I do believe that if it's dark, it does have a light, and it will basically flash, so that even if it's dark, it will light up long enough to take the photo and go back off. But we shall see.